Welcome to Japan Resale Property Seminar. I first start with the disclaimer. Originally, the disclaimer was put up for compliance purposes, but more and more the disclaimer is valid because the property market in Tokyo is moving fast and the products are actually having to be refreshed every week. And because we are selling resale properties, we are not selling you one new launch, a tower with 300 units for you to choose. The resale properties are moving within Japan as well. So our stock list, for example, this list that we printed last month, by the time we came to this exhibition this week, we had to update by stamping out all the sold out units. Originally, we had 20-something units to sell, but now within this building, we are only left with 8 units. So the market is moving in Japan. Let me introduce ourselves first. We are Century 21 Singapore, and I am Yong, head of the Singapore organization. We have got 23 agencies in Singapore with more than 350 people. But maybe you don't hear of us that often. So rank-wise, I think we are ranked within the top 20 as an organization, but not that visible yet. Some of you might have known me from television, news, Channel 8, Channel 5 or CNA, and maybe you have read my comments in the newspapers. I'm quite loudmouth and I also sometimes have my own complaints and grouses. I also present quite a lot at seminars, DBS speakers, presentation, private bank presentations. And I published 3 books. In this first book that was published in May 2011, it was right after the crisis in Japan. I said, let's keep an eye out for good value properties in Japan. And at that time, my favorite location outside of Singapore was London. But in the last 2 years now, London seems to have reached a peak, and this year definitely. If you are not in London yet, please do not buy London now. If you are already in London, you can consider selling if you have the opportunity to sell. In the last 2 quarters, London prices have started to come down. Secondly, with the oil prices like that, the Middle Eastern oil money and the Russian oil money will not be going to London anymore. And this year, UK will be having its general election, so there may be some instability over there. In the second book, I didn't talk about international properties, I talked about commercial and residential in Singapore. Then in my recently released third book, end of last year, I reviewed my recommendations in this book and I upgraded Japan. So Japan is now my favorite destination outside Singapore. And then I downgraded UK. And the other markets that I'm paying attention to would be Australia, and then emerging markets, Indonesia and Cambodia. The rest of the markets, such as Thailand, is a favorite of one of the favorites of Singapore investors. I think it is still too early to enter. And Malaysia, I think it is on the way for a big fall. So I'm not touching those. I'm a property agent, so I've got the property agent tag. I don't make money by giving consultancy or research or advice. I have to earn my keeps by brokering properties. So before we start, I have to give you some warnings. There are risks in investing in Japan's properties. For those who have just come in, if you want to have a coffee and drink, just help yourself. The Japanese yen may weaken further, or it may strengthen. So this is a risk. Japan has earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes. So if you are uncomfortable with these potential natural disasters, then take this as an educational talk instead of considering an investment. Japan also has nuclear power plants. So if that scares you, again, just take this as an educational session. Contracts are written in Japanese language. That one, seriously, I can't help. You have to sign off your purchase contracts in Japanese language. Although we have enough qualified agents, lawyers, and accountants who can talk you through the contracts in English. So investing in Japan is not for everyone. I started brokering properties to Japanese investors in 2006. That was when, prior to Lehman crisis, many Japanese investors were coming to Southeast Asia. And then, right after the crisis, well, in the midst of the crisis, I was working in Societe Generale Private Bank. I was a real estate advisor then, and I was recommending our high net worths to buy distressed Japanese properties. And at that time, you could get central Tokyo at 8 to 10%, but nobody was keen to go in. Subsequently, I represented developers from Japan from 2010, and since then I've been dealing with Japanese properties. But it was only until Mr. Abe took office in December 2012 that we actively researched the market. So 2013, we paid close attention to the market, and by the end of 2013, we decided let's bring Japanese products to Singapore. And the research that we did convinced us that we should do the hard work of looking for second-hand properties to bring to Singapore to sell. Second-hand properties is a lot of hard work because we have to go around looking for people who are willing to sell. So on our list of properties would be apartments that are sort of scattered. It is not helping a developer to come here to launch a tower of 300 brand new units. So there's a lot more homework to it. I'll explain why we prefer completed properties later. Our definition of completed properties is it could be brand new, but it is built and TOP. It could be tenanted most of the times. In fact, on our list, most of the units are tenanted or in between tenants. It may be owned by a developer, it may be owned by a fund, it may be owned by individuals. So that's our definition of completed. And by saying resale, we also mean it's completed, it is immediately moved in, keys in hand and tenants included. What we are saying is we are not marketing. BUC is building under construction and not off plan. So whatever you see today that is on the list, the building is standing there. You can touch and feel it. So why should we get into Japan now? Japan is still relatively inexpensive as compared to Singapore, Hong Kong, London. For such a major economy, Tokyo itself, if you want to just spend the price of a COE, not even the price of a Toyota Corolla, you can buy an apartment in Tokyo that is 3 to 8% yield. COE price, not even Toyota Corolla price. Japanese yen is at an all-time low, but this implies construction costs are up. So this is the key reason why we are proposing to use a resale property. Because construction costs in Japan, other than land cost, which is priced in yen, labor cost, which is in yen, the rest of the material, steel, copper, PVC, all the construction-related material that are priced in US dollars are making developers unable to give you a reasonable market price for their new launches. So new launches, land plus labor, Japanese yen neutral, but construction costs have gone up 20 to 30%. So new launches are naturally priced much higher than resale market. Later I have got data to show you. So with the yen at a low, it is also a good time for you to buy the yen using your Sing dollar, and then later on you could also potentially get FX profit. But I'm not an FX expert, so I can only tell you about the property. FX, maybe for an opinion, ask your banker. The key to the Abe government's push, and they are not shy to openly admit it, is they want to push inflation. They want to push economy to be hotter than it is now. So for that, they will be pushing very hard at creating jobs. Not just creating jobs, but increasing wage growth. They want to push consumption in order to push inflation to a positive, sustainable positive 2%. And for that, Mr. Abe, straight after taking office in December 2012, invested in getting the Olympics vote, which he managed to get. After getting the Olympics vote, now he's pushing for integrated resorts. So up to 5 integrated resorts, casinos will be available in Japan. but that's still to be passed through Parliament. When he visited Singapore second time, which was last year June, he came straight to Marina Bay Sands, and then after that he went to Resorts World Sentosa. He wants to see how we integrate our casinos into a major complex, such that it is not a standalone gambling destination. It is together with some other tourist attractions. Okay, we know that last year there was a technical recession in Japan. In the first quarter, there was a lot of consumption growth because the consumers knew that the government would increase the GST from 5% to 8% on 1st of April. So in the first quarter, the consumers were hoarding a lot of non-perishable products. So if you had planned to buy a new car, you would have bought it before 1st of April. Now, straight after that, consumers reduced their spending a lot. So this quarter, the drop in gross domestic product was mainly due to consumers holding back their spending. But in this quarter, it was a surprising negative GDP, partly because of the corporate stock level, destocking, and so there was a technical recession. That allowed Mr. Abe to quickly call for another snap election. So he then dissolved Parliament in November because of the technical recession. In December, he was re-voted in with 2/3 majority. So now he is very confident for the next 4 years, he has the power to drive things along his direction. There are many people who criticize Mr. Abe's plans. Later I'll show you some of the plans and what his scorecard is. But he has just been in office for 2 years. And some of these plans take a long time to pan out. He's already been successful in getting the casino and the Olympic Games in. With the Olympic Games going in, he has the excuse to build up infrastructure within Tokyo. So that money is being spent. New railway, new toll roads, and the Olympics Village area under construction. He is by far, for the last 20 years, the strongest leader in Japan. So that is why in many quarters of Japan, they are actually feeling that there is at least some light at the end of the tunnel. In the past 10 years, they have got more than 10 in the past 10 years, I think they have got about 8 prime ministers. Mr. Abe's election, this is the 3rd time he has won the prime minister position. So he will give it his best shot, I'm sure. 3 arrows of strategy. First and second arrow, print a lot of money, restructure some of the taxes and corporate policies to drive profits for the corporates. And third strategy is they must then reinvest the profits into the long-term growth of the country. He has also started to liberalize a lot of other sectors that are very closed up, such as agriculture. There are now 40-something farmland banks across Japan. They are trying to consolidate the small-sized family farms into large industrial-scale farms. So if you look at the big farms in Australia or USA, those big farms don't really exist in Japan. Now they are trying to mechanize themselves and grow big. And that opening up to the world is not just Mr. Abe traveling around the world and collecting his air miles. Many different parts of the government are coming out to the rest of the world to make contact. So, for example, last year I attended the Hiroshima, the Okinawa Vice Governor came to Singapore to promote trade and investments to Okinawa. This is the second time a senior person from government came to Singapore to update the Singapore market about Abenomics. The last year, the person who came was the Vice Minister in Prime Minister's office. This year, it is Professor Honda, who is advisor to the cabinet, came to Singapore to talk. In the past, the Japanese are very closed up. They don't care about you investing in them because their economy is so big. Today, they are engaging with the world to bring more of the world into Japan. So this open door policy, this open-minded, trying to open up their minds to allow more foreigners and foreign investments in is a very big change. So long-term growth through deregulation. this was what was explained during that seminar by the special advisor to the cabinet. And of course, he said that the results of their quantitative easing in Japan will take some time to surface. These are things that have to be executed over a long while. The money that is the profits made by large corporations such as Honda, Toyota, ANA Airlines from the weakened yen later on would have to be reinvested back into the economy in order to produce the wage growth as well as the capital expenditure as well as additional businesses. You cannot expect him to do magic within a few quarters. Low oil prices definitely helps Japan, but for real estate, some of the deregulated measures and some of the things that they are trying to do to enhance real estate would definitely lead to rising real estate values. So, for example, in giving you extra gross floor area if you're building in corporate hospitality components, for example, including medical centers and nurseries. One of the key drivers of opening up their economy is to get more ladies back into the workforce. And they are also trying to positively encourage companies to promote ladies into the C-level as well as to the board member positions. Now, many ladies who are well academically very qualified are staying at home as housewives. They are now pushing for bonus, GFAs as well as incentives to increase up to 400,000 nursery positions. Not job position, 400,000 nursery spaces for children such that the mothers can go back into the workforce. And if you give me such a bonus, as a developer of a new building, I would increase the floor space in order to include the nursery, and then I get a bonus cross floor area. That enhances my building's value. That means the real estate valuations will go up. Another few locations which they have already started to give bonus GFA, Roppongi, Shibuya, Shinjuku, Setagaya, they are allowing, for example, small plots of land of 5-story, 2-story buildings. If you can combine and en bloc sell your land to a developer, and your land size is above a certain, let's say 3,000 square meters, for that they allow you to build up to 8 stories, 10 stories. So right now, if you keep your land size small at 300 square meters, you are only allowed to build up to 2 stories or 3 stories. But if you combine with your neighbors to make a plot size that is significantly larger, they are allowed to build 10, 15 stories. And that has already started in the last 4 to 5 years. And that would enhance land value and rejuvenate the old parts of the city. So it is not just Prime Minister Abe talking and going out to do international marketing. The rest of government are following up. For example, here, within each prefecture, within each city, all the local governors, they have got their own plans of pushing the Japanese economy forward. And for example, their workforce has got more retirees leaving the workforce every year than young working adults coming into the workforce every year. So much so that even old retired doctors now need nursing care. Old nurses also have retired and they now need nursing care. So they recognize this. They are now going to allow foreign doctors and nurses, especially for nurses. It is a position that is critical for nursing homes, but they expect all foreign nurses, whether from Philippines, from China, to be able to pass the nursing test in Japanese. But for such positions, actually, the nurses are not in a critical care, not in operating theatres, also not in ICU. Why does the nurse need to pass the full nursing exam in Japanese? So they have started to relax some of these measures. So if you are just a nurse inside taking care of children in the nursery or taking care of old folks in the healthcare facility, you would then be granted your work permit. And that is opening up. So it is not just the top man talking and nobody below is following up. the whole country is working together with this Prime Minister to push forward his vision. So unemployment rate hit a high of 5%, up to 5.5% during the Lehman crisis. Unemployment rate has since gone down to 3.4%. This is of course, their lowest unemployment rate has been around 1+%, but that was historical record low many years ago during the peak boom in the late 80s. But now at 3.4% is relatively healthy. But the jobs, they are creating 875,000 job vacancies in December. 875,000 job vacancies is 1/3 of Singapore's workforce. We have about 2.5 million workers in Singapore. So across Japan, they have managed to create a lot of jobs, and that has to come from foreign talent, or it has to come from getting the ladies to stop being housewives to go join the workforce. Whatever way it works, there will be increased consumption, there will be increased wages. This is a newspaper article from July 26 last year. It spells out all the different prefectures and local city governments who are bidding for a casino license. Up to 5 licenses may be issued. The front runner would be Osaka and Okinawa. Sorry, I don't read Japanese words. I read Chinese words. Osaka and Okinawa are the front runners. Osaka because they already have the Universal Studios, so the first Universal Studios in Asia. And Universal Studios in Singapore is tied up with Genting. So Genting naturally went with Universal Studios Osaka to submit a proposal to get a license for the integrated resort. Plus, the Universal Studios in Osaka a few years ago spent a lot of money building up a brand new theme park that is the Harry Potter's theme park. So they also want to quickly absorb a casino license in order to recover their investment. This is an article, Universal Studios Japan, USJ, proposing to have a casino within Universal Studios Japan. And the work in the last 2 years, this blue line is foreigners, white foreign. This yellow line is local Japanese people. This is the airport traffic statistics for the Osaka airport, which the Kansai airport. Foreigner numbers exceeded local Japanese passenger numbers for the first time in history since Kansai was opened in the early 90s. So there is a lot of traffic going into Japan now. His policies are starting to work. Later I have another chart to show you. Partly because since he took office, the financial markets know that he's going to print money like there's no tomorrow. The Japanese yen has weakened. This is yen against Sing dollar. But over the last 2 weeks, Sing dollar actually weakened as well. And this Wednesday, MAS said that we will weaken the Sing dollar by a little bit and let it trend up less, not as quickly as it used to. They lowered the slope of the Singapore dollar strength. So now it's at 88 yen to, in fact on Friday, yen strengthened a little bit further. It's at 87 point something yen to the Sing dollar. But money printing to weaken the yen, to strengthen corporate profits, make the money, the yen's weakness brought in a lot of tourists, but that's not enough. The government, going for the open door policy, the government is relaxing visa requirements too. So from 1st of July 2013, Malaysians and Thais got their visa exemption. So the tour group started to go in. They also gave relaxed visa, multiple entry visas, UAE. Indonesia is supposed to get visa exemption. I didn't check yet, but this one from the Professor Honda, when he came to update about Abenomics, exemption of visa from visitors for visitors from Indonesia. Now, Malaysia, UAE, Middle East, and then Indonesia. All of a sudden, a new industry, halal food restaurants, open up in Japan because the tour groups going in requires halal food. So he has managed to create a lot of spin-offs, but the halal food industry is not about the balloon overnight. It will still take time. Who are the chefs who can prepare halal food? Who are the logistics operators who can import halal food? And are there any facilities that can help to slaughter the animals in the method that is accepted by the Muslim community to make them halal? So various parts are all coming together. You see these multiple gears all coming together to make the whole clockwork run smoothly. In the past, they really didn't have to pay too much attention to foreigners. Look at Kyoto. Last year, the magazine announced that it was Travel and Leisure magazine had a survey, and Kyoto was voted as the world's top must-see destination. Kyoto has 3,000 temples and shrines. Kyoto's tourism is very, very big. 51 million visitors to Kyoto. But out of the 51 million visitors, 1.1 million are foreigners. So a small city like Kyoto can absorb 51 million visitors in the year, but out of that, only 1 million are foreigners. Can Kyoto absorb 5 million foreign visitors? For sure. That's why you go to Japan in the past, the signages are all in Japanese, because the domestic tourism market is so much bigger than the international tourism market. Last year, they had a record high, Japan with its how many 100,000 square kilometers. In 2014, they have a record high 13.4 million visitors, foreign visitors. 13.4 million is short of Singapore by 1 million. Singapore is only 700 square kilometers, and we had 14 plus million visitors in Singapore. Japan only has 13 million. And this 13 million is a 30% growth over the previous year, which is 10.3 million. So you see his policy had, the previous year, 2012, when he took over office in December, they were at 9 million. No, they were less than 9 million, they were 8 million. And so there was a 24% growth to 10 million in 2013. But as the yen remained weak, tourism as well as business activities then carried forward, and you see they have a 30% growth. So you need to give him time for his policies to work. And at least in the tourism, F&B, retail industry, the foreigners' consumer expenditure, that component is starting to increase. But just looking at the Kyoto number, the foreigner share of spend, 1 million foreigners, even if we stay in better quality hotels than the 50 million, the numbers are just too big. That's too much of a difference now for the foreigners' participation to make a difference. But when this number grows to 5 million and this number remains at 50 million, then you can start to see foreigners' consumption and expenditure in Japan making a difference to the tourism and to the economy. In Singapore, we learned during SARS, when there was no foreign visitors and tourism into Singapore, for those few quarters, we learned that the foreigner expenditure is very, very low. Tokyo governor to openly speak with the press last year May interview to say that they are short of foreign talent, now they want to bring back foreign talent. How many of you remember the last major Japanese innovation, other than the singing group like AKB48? It was Nintendo Game & Watch, Sony Walkman. Those things are 20 years ago. The recent innovations like Facebook, Twitter, or Google, or iPhone, iPad, they're all from the West. So Japan is recognizing that they are losing those talent to Silicon Valley or to Boston for biotechnology, and now they want to bring back the talent to make Japan more attractive for people to go there to do research and to produce new things. But they are not just starting with your employment pass, they are starting from the university level. So this is the website of University of Tokyo. This is the Komaba campus website. They got 2 campuses. This campus is for first and second year students. And from this PEAK program, since October 2012, University of Tokyo allows undergraduates to go in and study for the full degree using English language. So you can do your exam papers in English. The lectures are conducted in English. To have more foreign students going in there to study, get their degree from Japan's top university, and then after that, the likelihood of these foreign students continuing to work in their local workforce is very high. It is the same where you see our children or our friends going to Australia to study and then continuing to work there and they want to come back. In the UK, it's the same. We've got friends who are doctors who don't want to come back from London after they finish studying and working in the hospital there. So they are starting this program. This was from 2 years ago, even right before Mr. Abe took over. They know that they have to open up their positions for foreigners. This University of Tokyo has been ranked #1 in Asia for the last 20 years. NUS just crept up to #2 2 years ago. So top university in Japan, 13 of the top universities now have got this English degree, have got these degree programs that are fully conducted in English. Guess the school fee. Tokyo University is a government U, but they don't discriminate between foreigners and local. The school fee is 500,000 yen a year, which is 5,500 Sing dollars, or less than 6,000 Sing dollars. So foreigners going there, for a Singaporean to go there to do a business degree is cheaper than a Singaporean staying in NUS or NTU to do a business degree. Then after that, we talk about cost of living. Cost of living in Tokyo now, frankly, is cheaper than cost of living in Singapore. Because one bowl of gyudon, beef rice, in Tokyo is $3 Sing in Yoshinoya, compared to one bowl of the same rice in Singapore with poorer beef quality in Yoshinoya, Singapore, is at $4. So the cost of living isn't that far apart either. So it's very viable now. Please consider having your children go there to study. My nephew is applying to Waseda. This year, through doing this seminar, know of 3 Singaporean families whose daughters are entering Waseda in the next semester. So Waseda school fees also 500,000 yen. The most expensive school fee that I've seen so far is Keio University, which is a private university, and that one is 1 million yen a year, which is 11,000 Sing dollars. It's cheaper a year, not one semester, which is still cheaper than sending your child to Hwa Chong International or ACS International for the IT program. And they are opening up even further. If you are 60 years old or more, and you can prove that you have got savings of 3,000 万 yen, which is 30 million yen. If you've got 30 million yen of savings in Singapore, in whatever private bank accounts you have, that's 300 over thousand Sing dollars. Plus you got health insurance, you can get 1 year long stay visa. So they are trying to attract retirees to go to Japan to enjoy Japanese air quality and food quality. I don't know why they must do this, but for sure you want to attract the younger people into the workforce. You attract the young people in to study and continue to work there. But they are also opening this up. From 1st of April this year, 300,000 US dollars, 330,000 Sing dollars, health insurance, and you apply for 1 year long stay visa. The other thing that most of us might have missed, we know that US has many millionaires. The US has the world's largest number of millionaires, but when you compare them city by city, Tokyo has the most number of millionaires. But of course, in terms of number of millionaires per capita, I think Hong Kong probably still has the highest. So it is a location with a lot of wealth. This chart, so now we are moving more and more into real estate, aside from the macroeconomics. This chart shows you that only 63% of the whole Japan is staying in their own home. The other 30-something% are staying in rented facilities or company housing. And this number, 8.77 million, this is 877.1, which is 8.77 million households are renting. In Singapore, most of us are staying in our own home, or we are staying with our parents who owns that home. Over in Japan, 8.77 million Japanese families are renting the place that they are staying in. So renting is not a taboo. Renting is something that is common and well accepted. Many people just remember that Japan had 20 years of doing nothing. The two lost decades. This is 1983. Economy ballooned, and in the late 80s, Sony went to Hollywood to buy up a few studios. You get very big conglomerates going to New York to buy up like Rockefeller Center. You got giant names such as Nisho EY that is trying to conquer the world economically, but the organization has since fallen because they went up very fast, huge balloon, everything fell, and real estate valuation, this is land price. Real estate valuations was flat all along, except for Tokyo right before the Lehman crisis. There were a lot of institutional funds, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs had big funds going into Japan, but mainly in Tokyo. So Tokyo had a bit of a peak, and then post-Lehman crisis, Tokyo prices came down again. But within the last 20 years, land prices were flat. Many people remember, but you just have to start looking at what happened in the last 18 months. Last 18 months, things started to change. So let's focus now on Tokyo. These are the 23 special wards, and I put the 3 red dots to give you a reference of the geographical orientation. This is Tokyo Disneyland. Most Singaporeans have gone there. Chikiji Market, which is a must-visit place when we go to Tokyo for the fresh seafood. And then this is Haneda Airport. So the top, this is not the whole of Tokyo. The whole of Tokyo is much bigger with extra provinces outside of these 23 districts. 23 districts, the districts in Japanese is called ku, which in Chinese is written as chi, with an X inside. The top 5 kus, Chuo, which is Zongyangchi Central Ward, Chiyoda, which is where the Imperial Palace is, and all the government buildings, law firms, courts, ministry departments. Shinjuku, which is very prestigious, very busy with student traffic, with worker traffic, a big office location. Shibuya and Minato. These 5 kus are the top ones. But luxury residential exists in more than just these 5 areas. They exist mainly here, but there's also luxury residences in Meguro, Setagaya. And in fact, Shinagawa now is getting some high-end residences as well. IBM, Cisco, the major technology companies have their headquarters in Shinagawa. So there is no single point of reference such as in Singapore, Orchard Road. If you say luxury residences and you point to Orchard Road, $3,000 to $4,000 per square foot, anything far away from Orchard Road should be cheaper and cheaper. So from Orchard Road to Yishun, you can draw a line and you can say that the price goes down from 3,000 per square foot to 1,000 per square foot up to Yishun. Here, it is not possible because in each ward, there may be 2 or 3 neighborhoods that are prestigious and luxury and have luxury residences. So just now I showed you the chart that was from 1983. That's 30-year chart. This chart is only from the last 2 years, and this one is just for Tokyo metropolitan area. Tokyo metropolitan area is bigger than the 23 wards that I showed you just now, but across the whole Tokyo, actually, price per square meter went up at the end of 2012, not much up. 2013 onwards started to trend up. So this is only 2 years of price growth, and the price growth is still very small. This is 400,000 yen per square meter, rising up to 440,000 yen per square meter. It is a rise of 10% in 2 years, but at least it is steady growth. 440,000 yen per square meter is only 500 Sing dollars per square foot. That's the average price of used condos. So these are second-hand transactions, and the average price per square foot of second-hand transactions, freehold in Tokyo metropolitan area, is 500 Sing dollars per square foot. Good value. Plus the yield is from brand new is around 3.5%. Used properties are between 4 to 8% for the yield. Very good value. So Greater Tokyo, if you compare the resale market, just now I told you that I'll prove to you why resale is cheaper. Greater Tokyo's new market, so these are new launches. Resale market, 2,800 transactions during the month of November. So during the month of November, these 2,800 transactions, each of the resale property has an average age of 20 years. So if today you bought a property that is 10 years old and you held it until it's 20 years old, you held it for 10 years and you put it into the resale market, it is still very much acceptable because the average age of the apartments transacted is 20 years. If you just focus on the top 3 districts, Chiyoda, Chuo, and Minato, the average age of the apartments transacted is 16.45 years. So old properties, because of the good quality built and because of the very high quality upkeep, and many of the Japanese tenants who are renting from you are very house-proud people. They will, when they quit from you to move out, they will redo the interiors back to as new as possible. So even 16.45 years is an acceptable age for buy-sell. Now, you look at the price. Average price in Greater Tokyo area per square meter is 441,000 yen, which just now I told you is around $500 Sing per square foot. That's resale property. For new properties, average transacted price is 638,000 yen per square meter. So this is about 50% higher price than the resale. So if you were to buy the brand new, you might get a yield of 3.5%. If you were to buy the slightly, the average 20 years age, your yield would be much better, 50% higher, so 3.5%, 50%. Your yield would be 5.5%. So let's not talk about Greater Tokyo. Let's focus more on the central 23 wards, or even the prestigious wards such as Shinjuku or Chiyoda, Chuo, and Minato, where you are buying closer to 1,000 Sing dollars per square foot. And at 1,000 Sing dollars per square foot, you can still have a yield that exceeds 4%. Later I show you specific examples. And all these numbers are not just, all the recent investment activities are not just down to small apartment sizes that are being bought by Hong Kongers, Chinese, Taiwanese, or Singaporeans. The institutional funds have started to move in a big way. So Ascott bought Best Western Shinjuku at the end of last year, around September. They announced this in November. They will convert the Best Western Shinjuku into their Citadines brand. And then City Development, being a Singapore-Malaysian family, the Quack family, Singapore-Malaysian family, so they know Malaysia very well, but they didn't invest in Iskandar. Yet, they partnered up with a US investment fund, and they invested 355 million into Seiko House. This house belongs to Mr. Seiko. We know Seiko as a watchmaker, but Seiko is a big electronics company too. And that's in the central Chiyoda ward, very prestigious. So house plus the land around it is 355 million. And then GIC bought this building that is near to the Tokyo station, 2.2 billion Sing dollars. Just bought, announced in November. And of course, Blackstone, which is not a Singapore company, but Blackstone bought into GE Real Estate Fund's whole portfolio at US $1 billion. Now, I'm very confident to bring you second-hand properties from Japan to sell because the level of disclosure is very high. The level of bullshit is very low, conversely. This is a typical advertisement for Japan's second-hand properties. of course, typical, all the advertisements will come with the asking price, and then the description of how near this property is to the nearest MRT station. And it is a standard to calculate 1 minute walk, 8 minutes walk is equal to 640 meters. 9 minutes walk to Mita station is 720 meters. 1 minute is 80 meters. There's no property agent in Singapore who would measure 1 minute walk as 80 meters. If my legs are longer, I always say this one 3 to 5 minutes walk. The shorter agent will say this one is 5 to 10 minutes walk. So in Singapore, you get a lot of grey stuff. And if you would ask the agent in Singapore, what is the maintenance fee, who built this building, who is the developer, sinking fund is how much? In Singapore, we are always short of the information. Here, even without you asking, it is all disclosed. So the full address, how many square meters is this piece of land? What is the total built-up area of this whole building? All this is disclosed up here. Then this unit that you are looking at, this resale unit, 54.57 square meter, which is the exclusive area, exclude balcony. So you are only buying 54.57 square meter of strata area. Balcony, 9.6 square meter is considered common area. So again, there's no BS that, hey, you are buying this at a very low dollar per square foot. Very low dollar per square foot because in Singapore, we calculate aircon latch, 30 to 40 square feet. We calculate balcony. We calculate bay window. We calculate planters. So your dollar per square foot looks exceptionally low, but when you enter, how come usable space is so little? Here, you are only talking about buying the internal exclusive area. Balcony, not counted. And that's 9.6 square meter, all displayed to you. Then, the description of the layout, 1 LDK, which is living room, dining room, kitchen, and 1 bedroom. Bedroom is here, living, dining, kitchen. And then reinforced concrete, 29 stories plus 1 basement. All explained to you. Which year was it completed? 2005, May. And then this is the developer, Sumitomo. This is the construction company. I can't read. It's 179 units in this building. And then the monthly maintenance fee, sinking fund, how many car park lots, car parks are not included in your property. So if you have to lease a car park, how much the car park charges? There's vacancy for car parks now. So all these things are declared to you upfront. We have got a lot of these type of fact sheets for our resale property. It is all very comprehensive. Usually, the only question that Singaporean investors need to ask us is, can you describe to me who is my tenant? Because we don't reveal who is the tenant until you indicate your interest to buy this property. You can't openly advertise your tenant in your advertisements anyway. And many Singaporeans have been slow to enter the Japan market, partly because many things look complicated. Of course, other than the language. In Japan, there is brokerage fee that buyers must pay. Buyers pay up to 3% buyer's fee. Then in terms of acquisition tax and registration tax, it is split into land value and building value. So here there are 2 line items, here there are 2 line items. And then there's stamp duty. Our impression of stamp duty is very high stamp duty. Later I show you what their stamp duty is. And then scrivener fee, which is a legal fee, but their judicial scriveners are people who work in a law firm. Their only job in this whole transaction is to bring your IC to register this property in your name. So they deregister the seller and they register you. So their job is minimum. Most of the jobs of checking that the property title is clean, that the train won't be running through your property, the road won't be widened in front of you, that is done by the broker. So that's why they pay the brokerage fee. And then in terms of holding cost, actually holding cost is as same price or lower than Singapore. In fact, property tax is cheaper than Singapore. Again, fixed asset tax and city planning tax is split into land value and building value. So there are 4 line items here, and Singaporeans look at it, think it is complicated, but it is. The absolute quantum that you pay is much lower than Singapore. Income tax for a property like this, 300 over thousand Sing dollars, the annual income that you pay minus out all your outgoings and property management fee, income tax is only at about 5%. Again, we keep thinking Japan taxes are high, but when you add up all these numbers, the holding cost is cheaper than the holding cost of investing into, let's say, a unit at Mandarin Gardens, 1,000 square feet, for example. Selling is the only part which is slightly higher than Singapore in terms of selling cost. I show you what is the stamp duty. This is a down payment certificate for 10 million yen, which is 110,000 Sing dollars roughly. The stamp duty on this 10 million yen is 200 yen, which is $2.20. Their stamp duty is very, very low. For a property like this, that is about $300,000, the stamp duty is only 110 Sing dollars, 10,000 yen. If you bought a property that is up to around 1.1 million Sing dollars, your stamp duty is 300 over dollars. So stamp duty is on a staggered scale. The highest stamp duty is about 5,000 over dollars. That's, for example, when GIC bought the building in Tokyo, $2 billion, they pay 5,000 over Sing dollars of stamp duty. Unlike our stamp duty. Okay? So brokerage fee 3% plus 60,000 plus consumption tax. Consumption tax is now 8%. Then real estate acquisition tax, building and land, registration and license tax, building and land. When you multiply out these percentages, the number is very small. In the booklet that we give you, and plus an article that I contributed to today, I spell out all this in detail, plus we have worked out an actual example of a real property inside, so that I want it to be totally transparent. Because in the market now, there are several other Japanese seminars, Japanese property investment seminars, and some of them are giving numbers that are not totally clear, especially when they are overinflated property management costs inside. So I want to spell things out very clearly. Property management fee in Japan is 5% of rental per month. That's your holding cost. 5% of rental amount. If the tenant is not in, because it's in between tenants, and let's say you're spending some money to refurbish your unit, during that month that the tenant is not living inside, there's no rental, 5% times 0 is 0. In London, property management fee charged by the agent is 12 to 15%. In Japan, it is 5%. Some companies charge 2.5%, some companies charge 3.5%, but the standard practice is 5%. So if you wanted to appoint Century 21 Tokyo to manage your tenant for you, you pay 5%. And if there's no tenant during that period, you pay nothing. There are some other seminars out there that are giving you inflated numbers. So I wanted to clear the air. Japanese properties are not that expensive to buy, and they are not that expensive to hold. So it looks complicated, but when we work through the actual example later, you see that it's actually not that expensive. So selling cost, this is the only point which Japan has that Singapore doesn't have, the capital gains tax. If you held it for more than 5 years, your capital gains tax is 15%. But this is a capital gain, not your selling price. And your capital gains at the end, at the point when you sell, you can still net out depreciation of your building, you can net out your interest expenses, there are many things that are allowable deductions before you report what's your final profit, then you take the 15% charge on the capital gains tax. And of course, you must pay your broker the selling fee. The stamp duty remains at a very low level. Actually, all these are in the booklet already, so no need to take the photograph. I now walk through with you the one specific apartment to highlight to you how reasonable the numbers are. So this is first Rail Tower in Shinjuku. It is just a short 8-minute walk from the west exit of Shinjuku Station. What is Shinjuku Station? It happens to be the world's most busy train station. So in 2007, Guinness World Records placed it as the world's most busy station. 3.64 million people per day walk through that station. But I think now it feels like much more than 3.64 million. This station has 36 platforms and 200 exits, which I didn't know about, but we always tell people if you are coming, we have sent many Singaporeans to buy this property, a few units. And when they go for viewing, we always say meet at the west exit, but there are actually probably at least 10 west exits, which somehow our people managed to find the correct person to meet up and then go for viewing. This is in the brochure at the back where the specifications of the building are. Again, disclosure is very high. This is a second-hand resale unit, but the seller has produced a brochure for it. And plot ratio, the site coverage ratio, how big is the building, how big is the total build-up area, all disclosed to you. Balcony space, including. This one is amazing for me. I work in real estate for more than 10 years, but here they disclose to you the speed of the lift is 105 meters per minute. There's no need for such level of disclosure, but they disclose. That's why I'm very comfortable selling you second-hand properties in Japan. So I use this example of Unit 1516, which has been bought by somebody in Singapore already. The purchase price is 30 million yen. In USD terms, at that time, exchange rate was 275,000 USD. Now it's slightly less. And then the rental per month, management cost, sinking fund. These are photographs of the penthouse unit that I took when I went to visit in October. This property is 8 years old when I took the photograph. This year will be 9 years old. This is the top floor level lounge with a grand piano inside. This is facilities for you to use. Basement one with the gym, music room with the spa, sauna. So full facility, no tennis court. Full facility condominium in Shinjuku. So asking price 30 million yen. The rental is 1.4 million yen per year. The gross yield per year, 4.7%. So when you break down the price of the apartment into land and building, this one land is 12 million, building is 16 million. And there is GST, consumption tax on the building value. So makes up a total of 30 million. This part is not for the buyer to worry about, because you pay the seller the 30 million, the consumption tax is taken care of by the seller. So the asking price of 30 million included the tax already. But what is important to you is the breakdown of land and building. This building value here at your point of purchase is an allowed depreciation number when you report your income tax for the next few years. Okay? Then registration license tax split into land and building. Property acquisition tax split into land and building. Broker's fee, which is 3% that you pay to the buyer's broker. And then stamp duty, which is the 110 Sing dollars stamp duty. Plus the legal fee for transfer of name, 2,000 over dollars. Then this is the property tax that is payable to the tax authorities for this year, or whatever is the remaining period of this year that you have to pay to the government. This fire insurance for 1 year for this apartment was at 30-something dollars Sing. Later I tell you more about insurance. And then the contribution to the repair reserve fund, which is like a sinking fund. So when you buy this property at 30 million, your total cash out is 31.7 million, which means that you have to pay an extra 5.4%. 321 colleagues elsewhere, Hong Kong, Taiwan, we can now help you to buy your property in Japan without you having to leave Singapore, because the contracts and all can be signed using through a power of attorney. We've got Japanese law firms in Singapore who can also explain the documents to you. We've got Japanese tax accountants based in Singapore who can help you with your tax filing every year, and who can also meet up with you to explain to you your tax liability. And then you can appoint a property manager there to deal with your tenants. Every month, monthly rental collection, monthly outgoings in maintenance fees, and any repairs and all that, the property agent, and that's the 5% of rental that you pay to the property agent. That's all. You don't have to open up a bank account. You can tell your property agent every 3 months to remit you the excess money. Or if you are going to Japan for business or for leisure, visit your property manager and take the cash from them whatever is the excess of your rental. So this was the article that I published in Today to clarify that investing in Japan is not that expensive. And subsequent to publishing this article, we published this small little booklet to give you all the detailed cost items, because the newspaper article cannot carry the mathematics and the calculation. So why buy Tokyo? In the FAQ, frequently asked question, you'll be asking me, when foreigners can buy? Yes. Foreigners can buy and resell to a foreigner? Yes. Foreigners don't have to buy brand new, like in Australia. Foreigners can only buy new. And when foreigners buy new and foreigners sell, you can only sell to an Australian. Australia has 20 over million people. How many properties can each Australian buy from the foreigners who are selling to them? In Japan, they have got 230 million people who can buy, I guess, not all of them can afford.
Population is 125.
Really? Oh. Sorry. Indonesia is 250 million. My God. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there are 125 million people who can buy the property from you potentially, if they can afford it. But at this type of pricing that we are introducing, 1,400 something Sing dollars per square foot freehold in Front Shinjuku area. This one is West Shinjuku. So this one is west but walking in the north direction. This one is slightly further west. This one is 1,200 something per square foot freehold with 4% gross yield. Your net yield is almost 3.8 to 4.0. Very good return on investment. So my recommendation is quickly buy now, because in the last 2 years we see that the banks have been opening up and allowing more and more banks are allowing foreigners to borrow. In Singapore, UOB and OCBC has been expanding their scope of lending money for mortgages to Japanese properties. So the more banks are willing to lend, the higher the valuations will be. Singapore's valuations are so high because it is easy for even foreigners to come in and get a bank loan 50% at 1.something% interest rate. So quickly take action. Respect the local practice, which is pay the buyer's commission. Buy resale properties which are lower price as compared to new sale. Significantly lower prices, about 30% at least. And buy and hold until 5 years later when the Tokyo Olympic Games happen. You review the market situation and decide whether you want to hold longer. For example, after London Olympics, for the next 2 years up to mid-2014, London property prices continue to go up. So there's no need to dump it before Olympic Games or during Olympic Games. You assess the situation when the event happens. Thank you very much.